Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with another video for Fantastic Fridays. Now, I want to just shout out Steph at Tito's Paris for suggesting I Hate Fairyland Volume 1 to me. It was a great comic. I enjoyed reading it. I'm probably going to look out for Volume 2 if it hasn't come out already. So I'm going to be on Amazon looking out for that. So Steph at Tito's Paris, thank you for the suggestion. Also, viewers, I'm going to leave her her sort of information in terms of her like Twitter page and things of that nature down in the description box below. So look out for that. Follow her on Twitter. You know, check out her tweets, retweet, all that good stuff. So, Steph, thank you for the suggestion. Great stuff. Also remember to like, comment, subscribe, and when you do subscribe, click that notification bell button, because if you don't click that bell button, you're not going to be notified, and if you're not notified, you won't know that a video is coming out, right? So it just makes it easier on you to make sure that when you do subscribe, and I know you'll subscribe, click that notification bell button. Also, be on the lookout for me on Twitter and Facebook. Twitter, I'm pretty much always on Twitter. I'm always tweeting, I'm always retweeting, I'm always having conversations. Also, Facebook, I'm trying to put out content on Facebook. So that's another way for you to also be notified. If you if you like my page, I'll pretty much post things on Facebook as well, so that you can be on the lookout for them over there. If you don't necessarily have like a YouTube account or whatever, you know, because some people, you know, like enjoy their privacy. They don't want to be on YouTube. They don't want any of that hassle or slack or whatever. So be on the lookout for me on Facebook as well if you want to be notified for more content. So to get into I Hate Fairyland Volume 1, the first thing I want to talk about is the art. And I think that just a little bit about me in terms of like sort of like my past education and stuff like that. I went to, for my undergrad, for my BA, I went to Queens College in Queens, New York. And I was an English major, and my focus was Victorian literature, but also children's literature. So one thing that I really loved was reading like all the fairy tales and all the classes I took, because one of my advisors was a big fairy tale person. Like she's a pretty, I think to me, like pretty big fairy tale scholar as of this point. So working with her was awesome. I got to read a lot of fairy tales in this sort of like original, not necessarily language, but in their sort of original sort of telling, you know, as they were translated, right, into English. So those things are violent, they are bloody, they are gory. You know, they deal with all sorts of, you know, tones, you know, undertones and things of that nature. And I Hate Fairyland is very much so like a nod to that, right? I think that any fairy tale story that is bloody, violent, and gory in, you know, 2016, 2017, whatever, is going to be a nod to that, right? So this is basically sort of showing that, like, hey, like if you grew up on like Disney, you know, the Disney version of fairy tales and things of that nature, you're missing out, you know. And not only are you missing out, but you're sort of getting kind of coddled into sort of the fairy tale genre, because the fairy tale genre wasn't, I don't think, necessarily intended to coddle children so much as it was meant to like teach children lessons, right? Very intensely, right? Like very intense lessons, like don't do this, or like you'll have to wear shoes that burn your feet or whatever, like, you know, like for all time or whatever, you know, like stuff like that, you know. So all of that Disney stuff, you know, put that to the side while you're reading I Hate Fairyland. Well, you don't need to put it to the side, but what you do need to understand is that like I Hate Fairyland is very much a sort of like a critique on that, but also sort of like a imagining and revisiting of those old school fairy tales. So that's one reason why I really like the art, because it's so violent, so bloody, it's so gory. But it doesn't necessarily sort of remind me of like, you know, kind of like the way that superhero sort of comics, such as like an Invincible or something like that, which, you know, coincidentally is also published by Image, right? Like the art in that is very violent, it's very bloody, it's very gory, but that doesn't have anything to do with fairy tales. That's just like, you know, like a writer that like maybe likes violence a little bit too much, yeah. And it's not a coincidence that like, you know, Kirkman also writes and like works on the Walking Dead, right? And I'm not sure if Otley also works on The Walking Dead. I'm pretty sure it's probably a different artist. But both, regardless, the art in that is very bloody, it's very gory. So there's that. But I also like that the art sort of, you know, leads me into my next point, which is that like this text is clearly, at least to me, not necessarily like an ode to feminism or anything like that, but it's very much so influenced by that. And the art, right? Let's say like we look at a character like Happy, and like characters like Happy and Gertrude, right? We look at those characters and we sort of think, okay, here's Happy, the character that everything is going well for, and everything sort of works out for the most part for because she's nice, she goes with the flow, she doesn't try to cause trouble, things of that nature, right? And then we see Gertrude is a character that like does not go with the flow, is always causing trouble, is basically trying to be herself, right? Because she's been there for 27 years. She's a 27-year-old woman who is frustrated, angry, and exhausted. So she is not intending to go with the flow. She just wants to get the hell out of there, and she's going to do that by any means possible. So basically, you can see Happy as sort of like a critique of sort of women who, and men, and pretty much any like person who is sort of culpable in the sort of acts of, belittling women, putting women down, things of that nature, going with the flow that is sort of like, the patriarchy and things of that nature. And even like a matriarchy that is concerned with maintaining a very like cookie cutter form of feminism, right? So like that's how I'm sort of reading Happy as a character. And if we're looking at Gertrude, we're thinking about Gertrude as someone who is like not about that at all. She's just like, I'm trying to kill the queen. I'm trying to kill everybody else that's getting in my way. I want to get home. I don't like the space that I'm in. Like, right? And like all those things, I think that like when I think about my conversations with my fiance, with other women, friends of mine, that's like stuff I hear all the time, right? You hear like women who are just like, man, like I'm in this space and this space sucks because these guys are being assholes, right? And like you see it on Facebook, you see it on Twitter, you see it on, blogs, you see it everywhere. And that's the thing, right? Like this is a comic that really, I think, like sort of tries to grapple with that in a lot of ways, because Gertrude versus Happy is clearly like a metaphor for that battle. And like if you want to think about intersectional feminism as opposed to sort of like a white feminism, you can think about it like that, where like Happy is sort of like a representative of that sort of like white feminism that is very much so about, let's just all be friends, unity, happy, 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 right? Like that. And Gertrude is like, no, like, I gotta get the hell out of here. This space is literally killing me. This space is making me exhausted, tired, and all those things. And that's what's happening there. So I think that in one sense, like, the comic does a great job of, portraying just how sort of battles between, like, feminists, like, work. And battles between women work. And just battles between, the patriarchy and women who are all about, a more sort of radical and in-your-face sort of brand of feminism. So we can also look at Claudia and think about her also as sort of like a representation of, right, the sort of like the sort of feminist who is like, no, like everything's got to the sort of white proponent of white feminism is someone who's sort of like everything needs to be the way it's been for the most part. So long as I'm like happy, right? Like so long as I, the white feminist, like the white woman, is happy. And I think that like that's like for me like that's what Claudia represents. So when Gertrude like kills her off at the end of volume 1, it's just really like it's interesting, right? Because she does sort of become the queen, right, of Fairyland, but it's like odd, like it's sort of like a representation of the fact that like no matter like not necessarily no matter what you do. But often when women tend to have like battles for sort of freedom or feminist freedoms and things of that nature, often what happens is that sometimes one woman is sort of deposed, right, in their sort of like white sort of feminist throne, and the other woman that was trying to just like get her freedom or whatever, sometimes often becomes a similar kind of sort of figurehead for that white feminism, even if they don't necessarily know it themselves. So I think that like that was sort of like a good way to show that like someone like Gertrude is fighting so hard to sort of get her freedom, but she inadvertently becomes like the next figurehead for the sort of oppression that she's facing, right? Like that was like really interesting. And I think that like I'm not necessarily sure if Young tried to do that, but I think that's there in the comic, and it's really, really well done. So kudos to Young for like, I think to me, like Happy and Claudia as sort of representations of feminism's kind of gone wrong for individuals that really truly believe in more radical, more contemporary, intersectional modes of feminism. So that's basically it for my review of I Hate Fairyland Volume 1. Like I said, I don't want these videos to be particularly long. So if you want to talk more about it, if you have ideas about what I've said and things of that nature, feel free to tweet me, find me on Facebook, comment down below in the comment section. However you want to contact me. My email's also down there. If you want to talk to me about that stuff, feel free to contact me. I'm always here. I'm always here ready to talk. So remember, like, comment, and subscribe if you want to be notified for more content. Hit that notification bell button if you really want to be notified for more content. And follow me on Twitter and like my page on Facebook. So, again, thank you, Steph at Tito's Paris, for the suggestion. Great comic. I think it's honestly a great feminist comic. And if you want to suggest more things to me, this is, to you, Steph, and to other viewers, feel free to find me on Twitter, Facebook, and in the comment section below. I'm the Black Manga Critic, and I'm out.